So in today's video, we're going to be taking a detailed look into one of the most intuitive and impressive things that I've ever seen in a guitar plugin. And it's called Dynamic Control from APFX's Primo. The great thing about dynamic control is that it can automatically change my tone, my sound, my effects, and even volume, all based on my dynamics and playing style. For an example, when you are inevitably playing rhythm guitar and you're about to jump into a guitar solo, you don't have to worry about hitting any pedals or turning any knobs. You can just simply play the solo as you normally would. And the dynamic control within Primo will pick up the change of dynamics within your playing, and also based on pitch, which I'll get into later, but it adjusts to that lead guitar solo tone, and then once you're done with that solo, it'll go right back to that rhythm low gain that you had for the rhythm guitar, which is just insane. And it isn't just about going from rhythm to leads. You can also do it with effects like reverb and delay if you want to add chorus and phaser to your rhythm parts, but your lead parts you just want some simple reverbs and distortion, no modulation. Your options are limitless with dynamic control. So you have all of these different effects, all of these different tones and sounds that you can automatically adjust through your playing without doing anything differently. You can do each of these things individually if you just want a little bit of reverb, or if you just want maybe some chorus or phaser. You can combine these effects and sounds as well. Now for each parameter, you can set two values. You have rhythm and bass, or rhythm and low, and lead and treble, or lead high. Now for me, and what I personally would use this for is this. So for my rhythm and bass, or rhythm and low, I would dial in lighter overdrives. So for example, I would use the channel 1 overdrive for these. The rhythm, I wouldn't bring it past, I would keep it around 35, between 35 and 40. And then the lead side, I would bring that up a little bit. But so when I'm playing the rhythms, just a like light gain sort of thing. Volume, I normally keep it the same. If I have any like overdrive pedals, which they have, I'll keep that pretty low as well, around 25% or even off. And then the reverb's lower. I actually may bring up like the chorus and like the phaser, those modulations up when I'm playing rhythm. And then when I go to play lead, these will be down, so there's really no modulations in my lead tone. That's just not my thing. The reverb will definitely be cranked up pretty high. You can crank that delay, as you can see. The delay and reverbs are lower on that rhythm. And then as you can see, it's just like all the drives and the levels are higher on the lead and treble side than they are on the rhythm side. Because when you go to solo, you want a little bit more of a boost, and you want your solo to pop and stand out a little bit more. Now that's just what I normally use it for, but you have no limitations with this at all. Now here's a sound example of what I was just showing you of what I like to set in my parameters for dynamic control. Now this is your main home screen for Primo. You have channel 1 and channel 2 for different gains. Channel 2 is obviously much gainier. You have compression, overdrive, you have different cab selections. You can tune, modulations, chorus and phaser, and then you have delay and reverb. Now if you want to hear all of these individually, I did a whole other demo of just the Primo in itself, going over each little section so you can hear everything in detail. There's more sound demos, so if you want to learn more about it, go check that out. This video is mainly just talking about the dynamic control. Now to access dynamic control, you got to click on the top right hand corner icon, and it'll be green when dynamic control is enabled and active, and then it'll turn orange if it's just bypassed. And then the master power button allows you to globally engage or bypass the dynamic control section. Now let's dive a little deeper into each of these parameters and also go over what smooth and balance controls do. Now here's all our parameters. We have the channel 1 gain, channel 1 volume, and this is all coming from the home page. It's just more organized in this window. We have our drive, which is like overdrive right here. We have the drive and level. Then we're getting into our modulations. As you can see here, we have the chorus, phaser. Now, like I said earlier, you can engage all of these if you want. So you can get some pretty insane and cool sounds. And this is actually really important to note. So let's say your delay and reverb is off. It can still be engaged on here, and you might not hear any rhythm or delay. That's because it's off and you need to turn it on the main homepage. Now, when dynamic control is engaged, you're unable to control this because it's automatically going to go to where it should be for that rhythm and bass parameter. Now when it's off, this is when you can change all these different effects, and it doesn't matter what dynamic control is doing because it's being bypassed right now and you're not using it at all. So if you're just sort of finding tones and seeing what you like, just turn it off, bypass it, mess around with channel 2, and channel 1, mess around with the modulations, mess around with the overdrives and the compression, find your sound, and then you can sort of know and be able to tweak much better within the dynamic control. Now you also have two other things to fine tune your sound. We have smooth and balance. Now smooth also changes like the dynamics of how you're approaching the rhythm to lead stuff. Now personally, when I use it, when the smooth is cranked, it gradually goes into your lead tone when you go to play a solo right after you're playing your rhythm parts. When this is brought down much further, there's more of a quicker response, it seems like, going from the rhythm to lead. Now for the balance, you can set this parameter to 100% lead or 100% rhythm or somewhere in between that. Think of this as like a sensitivity control. Now let's say that this is at 100% lead. It's still possible for Primo to shift to that rhythm value still. It'll be more prone to switching to that lead value since it's at the 100% parameter. The low value will still be engaged when you go to play those rhythm or bass parts. The balance and smooth controls are just extra functionality that APFX included in Primo and dynamic control, just for extra experimentation and just to have fun with it. Now, like I said, the two main different purposes of the dynamic control is for rhythm and solo, and then something called arpeggio. Now, arpeggio is basically when you are playing the lower end of the strings, the low E string, the A string, the D string sort of realm. Dynamic control will pick up when you're playing those lower strings, and it will adjust the parameters accordingly. And then once you play the higher pitched strings, the G string, B string, and high E string, that's when it kind of gets into the lead and treble area, and it will pick that up. So when you play the lower strings, you can adjust that for the rhythm and bass section if you want more reverb or less reverb. And then once it picks up when you're playing those higher strings or those higher pitched notes, that's when it switches over to the lead and treble side. And you can, like I said, add in phaser when those extra higher strings come up, more reverb when those you're playing those higher strings. And then when you go back to the lower strings, it gets rid of all of that. No more modulation, no more reverb. It's literally insane what you can do with this. It's super cool. And of course, here is an example of that.